Hello, all you beautiful people around the world, and welcome to another episode of The Journey Inward. Well, actually, today, folks, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to digress from the journey inward, which would be kind of the transpersonal, for something that is relevant, because, you know, I greatly believe that if your mind, body, and soul don't work in unison, then, you know, you can't actually function as a complete human being. But before I delve too much into what we're going to do, please let me welcome Gareth, who's with me again today. How are you, Gareth?
Hey, Venerina, how's it going? Great topic today, by the way. And I don't think it's that much of a divergence from our usual thrust of topics. There's lots of kind of overlapping things we can get into. But yeah, absolutely. Great to be here.
Excellent. Well, yeah, giving a little bit of the secret away there. We're actually going to, because this is very appropriate, because I mean, over the Christmas holidays, you know, Thanksgiving in the States and then Christmas, people tend to overeat, don't they? People tend to binge. Yeah. They just tend to stuff a load of, cram it all in there. Yep. And then in the new year, they kind of sit down and they make their New Year's resolutions and they never stick to them.
Well, they say that, was it the gym membership, you know, from like January through like maybe March or April is like off the charts. People signing up for the gym, you know, after the Thanksgiving and Christmas gluttony.
Yeah, but it only gets to about St. Valentine's, doesn't it, really?
Probably, yeah.
If it was anything like my New Year's resolutions, I used to make them on the 1st of January, and by the 5th, it was done.
Yeah.
That was it. So yeah, getting back on topic, what we're going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen, is nutrition. We're going to talk about food, my favorite subject.
Yummy.
But we're going to kind of look at food in a little bit of a controversial light, because there is so much myth out there, isn't there? I mean, everywhere you look, there's a diet for this, a diet for that, a diet for the other. But when you use the word diet, when I use the word diet, I mean a whole life nutritional package, something that you can stick to in the long term, not something that's a, quick fix fad thing. They work in the short term, and I'm living proof of that. They do work in the short term. But then in the long term, they don't work at all, because it's not feasible to stick to them for a lifetime. So, a lot of people nowadays are getting, we're seeing more and more disease, aren't we, Gareth? We're seeing more and more cancers. We're seeing more and more heart attacks. We're seeing more and more illnesses that are related to obesity and related to the food we consume.
You know what? I've thought about this a lot, and I don't think it's you're absolutely right. It is to do with lifestyle choices. Well, maybe I don't even know whether it is a choice. If you're in a certain environment, you only have one way to go unless you step away from the herd and do your own thing. But I was I was thinking about, like, being overweight people, and they think, well, you're at risk for heart disease and all these dreadful things to get you off the planet. But I was thinking that it's not necessarily being overweight that's bad for you. It's the clogging of arteries and the toxins in your system, things of that nature. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I would agree with that as well. I think there are two kinds of overweight people. I'm overweight, but I would say that I'm overweight fit. I train regularly. 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'll run 5 kilometers, do a bit of weights, do my abs. As you know, I'm a vegan. But then there are other kinds of overweight, which is the stereotypical view of overweight people who don't do enough physical activity. Yeah. Now, you're saying about the clogging of the arteries. When you consume a certain amount of fat, that goes into the system. If you're not shifting it by burning it off, it's got to go somewhere. Right. So in a way, yes, being overweight does cause these illnesses. If that person maybe walked a bit more or just did something to burn off what was going in, then, maybe there wouldn't be a clogging of the arteries in that sense,
I'm not too sure about that. I think that there's something Because, I mean, people have been eating fatty foods for a long, long time. But it's only in the last 100 years that this clogging of the arteries and massive heart attacks, people dropping dead at 50, has happened. It's something to do with the way the food is prepared now as opposed to the way the food was prepared then. I mean, there's always been fat people.
Very true. Very true indeed.
But these people weren't dropping dead of heart attacks at young ages. Well,
this is very true as well, and this I think is actually going to be the meaty substance of our conversation today.
Okay.
Because what I'd like to get into a little bit are the food. You're absolutely right. Food is not processed as it used to be, and in processing it nowadays. Did you know, Gareth, there are over 6,000 hidden chemicals they use in food processing? And half of those, at least, if not all of them, are carcinogenic even.
Yeah.
All that.
I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of know about it, but you kind of pretend you don't. And it's incredibly difficult to avoid these things because they're in everything.
Yeah, well, sorry. If you think about it, 6,000 chemicals.
Yeah,
that is like if they don't get you one way, they're going to get you another way.
Sure.
But let's have a look at there are the ways of processing food. You can freeze food. You can dehydrate food. You can buy food in cans, can't you?
Yeah.
And there's something. There are probably several other ways of processing food. But what the manufacturers do is they add extra color into the food.
Right.
They add extra flavor into it. They preserve it because, for longer duration. They add sweetness to it. And most of the sweeteners, all of us know, contain aspartame, which is used to make tarmac. You put it on the roads. Would you really want to put it in your body?
Well, there's something else with that. Is it how did you say it?
I said it in Italian. Aspartame.
Aspartame. What's it in English? Aspartame. Or so I can't even pronounce it. But it begins with an AS.
You guys know what it is.
But yeah, it's clearly labeled on. You could buy a can of Diet Cola, and on the side it'll say aspartame or whatever it is. And I was reading somewhere that this substance that's in mostly diet soda drinks, but probably in a million other things also, is that once this chemical reaches body temperature, like 95 degrees or whatever, there's a molecular change in it, and it turns into what's it called? The embalming fluid. What's that embalming fluid called? Formaldehyde. It turns into formaldehyde when it reaches a certain temperature. So when you have your diet soda in the fridge and it's nice and cold, well then it's just this aspartame or whatever you pronounce it, just sitting there. But when you drink it and it warms up in your body, there's a chemical change and it turns into formaldehyde inside you.
Wonderful.
Isn't that great news?
You really want to put that stuff inside you. This is what I'm go to a morgue, and when you see a hand, in this liquid, which is formaldehyde, would you really want to drink that liquid?
Yeah. Sheesh.
I know it's frightening.
Yeah.
But other things that the food industry do is they use emulsifiers in foods. They use stabilizers. And a lot of these things are words we can't even pronounce, like the aspartame, But the thing is, do you really want that stuff going into your body? Do you know how that affects your body?
Well, you see, most people, the two things are going on here, which is why most people are oblivious to this. Number one, they don't know about it. Most people do not know. And number two, they don't care. In other words, they don't want to know. Right? Because they look at food and they look at the price and they look at the way it looks. And if it looks good and it's at a good price and they know it's going to taste good, guess what? They're going to buy it and they're going to eat it, regardless of what kind of chemicals are embedded in it and how much harm it's going to do to them. I think that most of it has to do with a time period, right? It's like if I eat this double cheeseburger right now, it's not going to hurt me. I'm only going to get the negative effects from that double cheeseburger 10 or 20 years from now. So you're off-putting the pain associated with eating that food. Now, if the pain was instantaneous or a couple of hours or even a couple of days later, nobody would buy it. But because there's that time period, then they're good to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was what, that's, most people think I became a vegan because of animal rights issues, which is going to upset a lot of my Buddhist friends probably, because that's not the reason I gave up meat. The reason I gave up meat was mainly because I'd have the burger and have the consequences immediately after eating the burger.
Well,
for me, it was a serious case of what we used to call the MacDon tummy time.
Okay, all right, I get you. It's the joke I always used to say with that was when there's a bunch of stores over here called Taco Bell. I don't know if they have those in Europe, but where it's like
I haven't seen
it's very cheap Mexican food, and they're everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's fast food. And I always say, when you buy Taco Bell, just go buy the food and just go home and flush it immediately down the toilet, just cut out the middleman,
Yeah, that sounds about right. That definitely sounds about right. But the thing is, people aren't aware that I greatly believe that we are what we eat. We may not see.
What do you mean by that? Let's just get into that, because I've heard that so many times, and everyone does, throughout your life. You are what you eat. Explain that.
Well, okay, if we think of the simple act of ingesting something,
right.
Okay, that by ingesting that food, it gets processed in the stomach, then it goes into the small intestine, and then in the big intestine, and everything gets sucked out of it that we need, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients, everything. Those elements then get transported into the blood system, and they go to give nutrition to the cells of our body. They feed our body, so whatever we put in our mouth essentially becomes us.
Yeah.
And what the body doesn't need goes by the wayside and gives the council something to do. But so everything we ingest, it becomes a part of our chemical makeup, because at the end of the day, a human body and the food we eat is nothing more than chemical compounds, sure. Aren't they, really? Excuse me. So that is what is generally meant by we are what we eat. And I greatly believe that. As you know, I know I keep referring back to this, but when I had my accident and then when I had the hernias and everything, I didn't have surgery. Even now with my cerebral condition, I'm not having a shunt put in. I'm using nutrition to control all the symptoms in my body. By becoming a vegan, excuse me.
Yeah, you need to drink some milk to clear that up.
Oh, yeah, don't get me started on milk. We're getting there. We're going to get to dairy products in a minute. But what I found was when I was trying to heal myself, I found that if I ate dairy products or if I ate meat I was allergic to anyway, I was convinced of it because I could not digest it. And then I discovered that dairy products were giving me acidity. They were causing, a whole complete series of reactions within my body that I realized that I just couldn't digest it. And so I went looking for potential reasons. And I found a lot of studies that said that dairy products were possibly linked. Actually, there are some studies confirming it and some studies kind of like not denying it, but not confirming it either. That dairy products have been linked to breast cancer, prostate cancer,
cancer. Just say cancer. Because,
cancer.
You get cancer of everything. But let's talk a little bit about that then, in regard to milk itself. Now, I've heard many stories that milk. Cow's milk is that the human body is not designed to process cow's milk. We're beyond that. When we drink it, it has more harmful effects than positive effects.
Yes.
Is that true?
Well, it's what I've read as well. And from my own experience, I tend to believe it. One, we don't have the digestive system. Our digestive system is not set up to actually digest this milk that is produced by cows. The only time a human being needs milk is literally when they're breastfeeding in infancy after birth. Once the breastfeeding stops, then we do not need milk. It's not true that it's necessary for building bones or teeth or, calcium, yes, is necessary, but not in the form of cow's milk. As humans, we just don't have the system to digest it. Even cows, even calves, only have a digestive system set up to digest it for a certain amount of time.
But the dairy industry or the milk manufacturing industry is a $1 billion industry, making vast amounts of money. I mean, the advertising, got milk, and the massive advertising campaigns, particularly aimed at children.
Yes.
Very, very much. I mean, I have kids myself, and my son will always say, I want milk. I want milk. He loves, he likes a glass of milk or chocolate milk. Dare I say it? It's everywhere you look. It's geared towards these dairy products. And let's be honest, regardless of whether milk is very bad for you or not, it tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with all of these foods, right? All of these foods are designed to taste very, very good.
With the substances that we were talking about earlier that they put in them when they process them.
Yeah.
Because they have to make them palatable, otherwise they won't be sellable.
Sure.
But if we look at the truth about the food industry, it's very topical. There are only 6 major corporations, and they're private corporations, might I add. So we only have 6 people, because each corporation is owned by an individual person. Okay, they're not public liability companies. So the whole food supply for 7 billion people on this planet are in the hands of 6 people, 6 companies. Okay, one is Cargill, one is Continental, one is Monsanto, our dear friends.
Yes, yes.
Then there is I think it's Philip Morris Kraft, and then there's another company which I can't remember. I never remember the name of this, which has been linked to the House of Windsor, which is the royal family in the UK. Now, these 6 people, if we look at them, especially Monsanto, are all heavily involved in politics worldwide.
Right.
They're all heavily involved, especially Monsanto, in genetically modified food.
Yes.
And they own advertising companies. If they don't own these advertising companies themselves, they're, in partnerships with them. So what they do is they ensure that any product they produce has a nice, flashy, colourful little packet to, on the outside. They have the best graphic designers working on these packagings. They have the best in PR and psychology working on trying to get that message across to you so that you feel emotionally attached to that little carton of milk. So you'll go buy that little carton of milk.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you need that carton of milk.
So what you're saying, Venerina, this brings up an interesting point. Now, these companies, you mentioned a handful of companies there that are heavily involved in food manufacture, genetically modified food sources, marketing, and politics. It brings up a thought, at least in my head, is that what is their aim? Is their aim purely to make lots and lots of money, or is there something else going on here?
I think there's a lot more going on than that. A, it's about money. B, it's about greed and control and power. And actually, that was C, D, and E. But one of the worst things, I think, at the moment is they're also now delving into our health, our well-being, our fertility. I don't know if you know this. I think we spoke about this once, but the new genetically modified corn that Monsanto has come up with was being sent to Africa with a very powerful fertilizing agent, if that's a word I can use.
Yeah.
Now, how can these people think that they're so above everything that they can send in a product to make people infertile? But then on the flip side, sorry, before you say that, hold that thought.
Go ahead.
On the flip side, how much money are they making in fertility treatments each time a couple can't produce?
Well, something else is going on here also. I mean, think about the mindset that would actually allow that to happen.
I know.
That would actually go down that path and say, look, we can do this to this corn, and we'll send it over there. We'll make it very cheap, very plentiful. People will buy it like there's no tomorrow, and they'll become infertile. Now, what's the end game here? Why would somebody pursue that course?
Population control?
Well, it doesn't seem like it's population control. It seems like it's almost genocide in a way, right? Because if a people cannot reproduce, then it's game over for those people, right? You're done.
As well, yes.
You know.
So yes, as well. It's a complete control of everything. It's actually quite frightening to even think about.
So, genetically modified foods, they're everywhere, right? Every supermarket you're going to go to buy, your loaf of bread or your can of beans or whatever you're going to be purchasing, chances of them either being completely or partially genetically modified in some way is very high. And currently there's no way of knowing what is and what is not.
That's very true.
So what do we do?
And these people are so above the law in every respect that there is no obligation for them to actually inform us of what's modified and what isn't.
Because let's be honest here. We're eating that stuff now, whether we know it or not. We are. It's at a level right now. It's gone past the point of most food is just normal, natural food, and then there's a few genetically modified. It's reversed itself.
Yeah, it's gone drastic. It's do you know that, or you know this, but our listeners may not know this, Monsanto now has almost complete monopoly on all seeds planted in the US.
Right.
We know from a few of the mindset shows that we did, thanks to Alex, who brought some clips on, organic farms were shut down. They had their crops burnt or bleached, even worse. Animals were slaughtered for no reason whatsoever, apart from being organic.
They've gone after. There was a very famous health food store in California, Santa Monica, and they sold nothing but non-contaminated food, unpasteurized milk, very, very pure, like real deal. And they came and they shut them down because they didn't have licenses or the correct papers to sell non-pasteurized milk. You're putting people's health at risk. And they used all this stuff. And the guy was clearly stating, anyone who comes into our store to purchase our stuff is under no illusions as to what they're buying.
Yeah.
So if you come in and you pick up a bottle of milk from the refrigerator and there's a sign that says, this milk has not been pasteurized, and you purchase it and drink it, you do. I mean, how hard is this? I mean, no one's pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. But if you go to a supermarket and you purchase something, you don't know whether it's been genetically modified or not. But that's fine. That's okay. That's a massive corporation. That's okay. They can do it. We can't.
That's terrible. Do you know, I found a statistic online that made me go cold. You know that horrible shiver you get down your neck?
Yeah.
I got that when I read the statistic. In 2006, 252 million acres of transgenic crops were planted in 22 countries by 10.3 million farmers. 2006.
they're making it very difficult for farmers to work with non-genetically modified seeds. They make it more financially attractive for them to work with genetically modified. You know, if you go along with their rules, it's easier for you to do it. You can make more money, and all that stuff. And I mean, this conversation could get kind of dark because the motivation behind this, while yes, it is designed to make lots of money. In other words, you can patent the seeds. So you own them, therefore you can license them or sell them at a greater profit or cheaper or whatever the case may be. It ultimately comes out to you're going to be making a lot more money dealing with genetically modified products than non-genetically modified. But then there are side effects. Because this is so new, we don't know the end result. You know, we'll probably know in maybe 30 or 40 years whether or not this has been a great thing for humanity or a very bad thing. I kind of believe it's going to edge more on the very bad thing than the very good thing. Because we do not know. I tend to agree with that. There's no scientific studies because of the time period. This has just happened in the last, 5, maybe 10 years, if that. So we won't know the real outcome for another 30 or 40 years when we see people, you know, all dropping dead of who knows what cancer or whatever. Or not.
Or maybe the effects are already starting to show. Maybe maybe the deaths in the last 3 years, at least. If in 2006 we were planting so many genetically modified foods, why who's to say that the deaths of the last 3 years weren't related to genetic? You know, all these weird cancers that keep popping up. Who says they're not related to GMOs?
Let's talk a little bit about the vegan diet and the health benefits, and then maybe some spiritual aspects of eating the correct food and the wellness of the whole body. So you became a vegan, a couple of months ago, or? I
did, yeah, after being vegetarian for quite some time. But I realized that I didn't know how to be a vegetarian. And so I relied heavily on dairy products. And the more dairy products I ate, the more I noticed I was feeling drowsy. I was getting like a spider web across my throat, which was making it difficult to breathe. And I was getting really bad migraines, which, so it made my cerebral condition more acute.
Right.
And so I just thought one day, and I was talking to somebody actually, I did not know, okay, this is how stupid and ignorant I am sometimes. I did not know that cheese, I knew there was rennet in cheese, but I didn't know that rennet is a byproduct of an animal, that it's actually part of the lining of the stomach of an animal. So when I found that out, I was kind of like, what? I don't eat animal products and I'm putting cheese in my body and it contains, the lining of the stomach of an animal.
Right. Right.
I wouldn't eat my own lining of the stomach, because for me, it is a living being. From the Buddhist aspect, I do consider an animal a human, not a human, a living being.
Sure, yeah. And
I respect that living being has a right to have a life, yes.
And consciousness.
But I'm not to the extreme. I kind of go with the Dalai Lama's view on this, because the Dalai Lama, contrary to what a lot of people believe, is not a vegetarian. And he's not a vegan. He eats meat.
I didn't know that.
But his philosophy is if the animal is not killed for his selfish need to sustain himself, then it's okay to eat it. But if the animal is specifically killed for him, then it's not for the greater good. It's for a selfish cause. Now, I believe that people have the right to choose what they want to eat. Animals are being killed every single day.
Right.
To fill supermarkets,
Yes.
And I believe that a population has a right to choose whether to eat or not eat meat. That the animal's going to get killed anyway, if that's the purpose of the animal. I do believe it is sometimes a very cruel thing to do.
Yeah.
In fact, my father used to raise goats, and then at Easter he killed them, and I'm kind of like, how can you raise a creature like that and then just kill it, just to put it on the table?
Well,
for me, that's like...
I've often thought that if we had to kill and slaughter our own animals to make our food, there'd be I mean, I couldn't do it, right? But I know that there's some people who would do it and relish it, right? They'd love it.
Yeah.
But I think most people would not be into that.
Yeah. Do you know, I think the sad thing is nowadays, Gareth, if you talk to a little kid, okay, they don't even know where the animals come from. They just know that in a supermarket there's a nice shiny package, with cellophane on it, and that is the animal.
Oh, no,
they
absolutely.
have no idea how... Sorry.
Yeah, my daughter is kind of a vegetarian.
Uh-huh.
Not 100%, but kind of. And she's a vegetarian not because of any conscious, I mean, she does love animals and stuff, obviously, as most kids do. But she's just not into it. You show her some meat or something, she's like, no, I'm not eating that. It's like, she's like, nah, there's no way I'm eating that. And she absolutely will not. She won't even go there at all.
Yeah.
And it's been like that since she was tiny,
Yeah.
Like we would, when she was little, we'd ground up like little bits of hamburger meat, tiny pieces, and put it in with rice or something. So, just because we're thinking, well, she'll get some nutrition, some iron or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And she'd with her little spoon get a mouth of rice, put it in her mouth, and then she'd go and she'd spit out all the meat.
See, she was wise even then.
Yeah.
Do you know, when I was younger, I must admit, my dad's thing was a steak. He'd love a steak. So once in a while we'd go for the steak, and I'd just cut off the fat around the edges. Didn't want to eat the fat and leave the meat. I really didn't like chewing the meat.
Right.
For me, it was not natural to be chewing that. It didn't feel nice or normal. But yeah, as I was saying, I do believe people have the choice, the right to a choice.
Okay.
And but my choice, yes, is to be vegan. It started mainly because of health reasons. Everything with me is motivated by my health, how I'm feeling, and the biggest thing is, I have a condition which is called idiopathic intracranial hypertension, which is very, very similar to hydrocephalus. So I have too much cerebral spinal fluid around my brain. Now, in normal people, the pressure in the cranium should be about 23, 24. But in me, at my worst ever, when I was rushed into hospital, it was over 40.
Wow.
Now, conventional medicine, the only solution conventional medicine offers is to put in a shunt that goes from the brain area to the stomach, to any area that they feel like they can drain it, but it's mainly to the stomach. And I vowed I would never have the shunt. So
you'd have like a surgical procedure, having this thing put in your head.
Yeah, just like a tube to drain this fluid from my brain, This is what they wanted to do to me. Now, I was diagnosed with this in 2009. I have only had one lumbar puncture because that's the only way to control the fluid, to extract the fluid to bring the pressure down.
Right.
I vowed I'd never have one again, and I didn't. And I haven't had any surgical procedure. Now, if you go online and research this and you see the people that have my same condition, they end up having shunts. They end up, immobilized in bed, practically paralyzed. A lot of people, it is a very debilitating condition for a lot of people, and it can also be fatal because if the pressure goes up too much, the brain can just drown itself and it's lights out. Thank you very much. Had a nice life. See you soon.
Yeah.
Or see you in the next reincarnation. So for me, since 2009, everything has been about what nutrition helps me and what nutrition goes against me. And what I did was I did like a week, for example, of eating one thing per day to see how my body reacted. So I had bread every day. I had bread all day, one day. And I found that I do not tolerate bread at all. So then another day I tried something else, and another day tried something else, pasta, rice. I went through them all until I got down to where I am now, which is being a vegan, which is basically no processed foods. Actually, I'd probably have a 1% processed food in there because every now and again I treat myself to rice cakes. But other than that, it's mainly fruit, fresh vegetables, and some nuts.
Okay.
Nuts and some seeds, but not in great quantities. And I found that the more I eat raw, the better condition my body seems to be in.
So you'd feel a lot better.
Well, apart from feeling a lot better, I haven't had a migraine in, I'd say now it's probably about 2 months, which normally I'd get a migraine smack on the clock every month for like 3-4 days. But before 2009, or, when I was diagnosed, I was having 28 migraines a month.
Oh, my God.
And people who have this condition, who can't control it like I can, they do. They get 30 migraines a month, or just one huge migraine that they can't even get their head off the bed.
Yeah.
And when I say migraine, I'm talking about something that is actually 100 times worse than a migraine. So if you imagine the migraine with the white flashes and the headache and the vomiting and the diarrhea and everything else, enhance that by 100, and that's when you've got, the intracranial hypertension symptoms.
So you switched to pure veganism. So describe what the definition of being a vegan actually is.
Well, being a vegan essentially is you don't need to eat, there's no meat, no fish, and you don't eat any dairy products or anything that contains dairy products. So no milk, no cheese, no butter, no margarine.
So no meat and no dairy.
No meat, no fish, no dairy.
So basically vegetables and fruit, or that's it.
That's it. Yeah, no chocolate, no nothing. Chocolate. But I've kind of taken it one step further than that, because I don't have anything with flours in it anymore. So I don't eat bread. I don't eat pasta.
So is you couldn't for a vegan diet you couldn't eat bread then, right? That's kind of.
Yes, you could. If you were a straightforward vegan, you could have bread if you wanted bread. The thing with bread is, and you're not going to believe this, but I have 2 or 3 issues with bread. One, wheat contains gluten. And in our society nowadays, so many people are actually allergic to gluten. And we don't seem to be able to digest it as a human nation, as a human population.
Right.
But aside from that, I read an article that was published just a few days ago, that they've now found a new chemical in processed foods, which is called, and forgive me if I say this wrong, but it's called acrylamide, and it's responsible for cancer again in the bladder,
nice.
In the bowels, kidneys. It's also responsible for infertility and loss of muscle control. And wait for it, because the products that it's found in are wafers, bread, biscuits, baby biscuits, roasted coffee, substitute coffee, French fries.
Pretty well. I mean, pretty much everything. What you're describing is pretty much every food on the planet. But yeah. So how do you function? I mean, your choices for food seem to be severely limited. Now you must have some creative ways or how to get around this.
I don't think I am limited. No. If you think, at the moment I'm in Spain. Right. And Spain has something really great still. If you go to a farmer and buy your produce, which you can still do over here, you can buy seasonal fruit and veg. So at the moment, for example, there are a lot of they call butternut squashes around. There's pumpkin, there's aubergines, there's peppers, there's different types of marrow. So you might think you're limited, but you're not. And then if you look at Indian cooking, okay, Indian cooking has like thousands of recipes that do not involve anything other than vegetables.
Okay,
you can make.
Let's do this.
Yeah,
let's do this. So I want you to describe for me. Let's just say tomorrow morning. Okay. You wake up.
Yep.
And I want you to describe for me what you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what it involves, and all the rigmarole you got to go through to get it so you can eat it.
Okay. Right. It depends if I'm feeling lazy or not feeling lazy, okay?
Okay.
So the lazy version is get up, have my mug of green tea.
Okay.
And then have some fruit.
With nothing in it, right? Just boiled water and the tea.
And the green tea, that's it, nothing else.
Right, okay.
And the lazy version is have some fruit, because I don't have to peel it, wash it, clean it, or anything.
Right.
Maximum if it's an orange, I have to take the skin off. But otherwise, I can eat fruit lazy version. If I'm feeling not lazy, then what I'll do is I'll get some carrots, some runner beans, some celery and cucumber.
Okay.
And what I'll do is I'll juice all that.
Right.
And then I'll put it in my blender, and I'll add a tablespoon of barley grass or wheatgrass, depending which one I've got. And then I'll add a spoonful of soya protein as well.
Okay.
And then I'll let it, I'll mix it all up, and that is my morning juice.
That's your breakfast. So you get up, you have your tea, and you have your juice thing.
That's it. Yeah.
So with the juice, did you put like ice in there too, or water?
No. I'm one of these people that's against ice in anything that we have, because the metabolism works at a certain heat, at a certain temperature.
So when you're drinking your juice, the juice is room temperature?
It's room temperature, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything with me is room temperature.
All right.
So then, lunchtime comes around, and my lunch will be this enormous salad whereby I'll put fresh mushrooms, fresh asparagus, fresh fennel, tomato, half an avocado, some oil, some balsamic vinegar, pepper and salt if that's what people want. But that'll be my lunch, this like huge salad.
Okay. And
then I tend to find that, around about this time in the afternoon, I might start getting just a tiny bit peckish. If it's closer to like 6:30-ish, then I'll just directly have my dinner.
What do you have for dinner typically? I mean, I know every day is probably something a little different, but what do you usually go for?
Well, actually, most of the time, I'll go for some steamed veggies. So I'm going through a phase at the moment of broccoli, because broccoli are in season.
Okay.
So I'll have broccoli. But again, it depends on whether I'm feeling lazy or if I'm feeling kind of, okay, I've got the time. Because if I've got the time,
right,
I can make vegan food really unhealthy. I'll make little French fries of sweet potato.
So if you're lazy, or maybe not lazy, what if you got a million things to do and you just want to grab something real quick to eat and then get on to whatever you got to do?
Okay, then I'll just stuff some tomatoes, some oil, vinegar, garlic into a blender and make a quick gazpacho, and then I'll drink that.
All right, So you'll make like a quick shake and just drink that, and then on you go.
Yeah, or again, if I'm really, really lazy, I'll have fruit, because fruit at night as well, if you don't eat it too late, is really good for you.
And I'm assuming, of course, throughout the day you're drinking a ton of water and stuff too, right?
Yeah, I drink at least 1.5 liters of water a day, and I drink green tea.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, that sounds pretty good. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's that much of a big deal to do all that stuff. I mean, I think the only hassle I can foresee is shopping.
No, it's not a hassle.
Really?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. Again, if I'm feeling lazy, I'll just go to our local.
Why do I get the feeling that you feel lazy a lot?
Yeah, I do. When you live on your own, for so long, and you don't have to worry about anybody else.
Yeah.
You just fall into this lazy routine. If you don't cook, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to complain.
Sure.
If you want to have fruit, doesn't matter. Nobody's going to complain.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is this lazy element. But when I'm kind of like in a rush and I just want to get stuff and that's it, I go to our local cash and carry that sell fresh produce. But I have to say, it's probably genetically modified, even if it's grown locally,
right,
given the statistics.
Yes.
On times when I'm not feeling so lazy, I'll go to the local market. But I was wandering around the market a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking, well, the cauliflowers look too white and too perfect. Even when you used to think it was a little farmer that you'd come down from the mountains, everything looks so perfect.
You know what? You bring up a very good point. Is that when you do go to buy produce or produce, whichever way you pronounce it, real food is always a bit off as far as the way it looks.
Yeah.
You love carrots all over the place, and potatoes look like who knows what, and it's all a little weird looking.
Well, yeah, because the worms want some as well when it's good stuff.
Right.
Even
But when you
it.
go there and they're all perfect, all the potatoes are perfectly, round, or the cabbages are all perfect, and they all look like like a piece of art.
Yeah.
Then something's up.
Yeah, that's very worrying, isn't it, really? Because if it stays that good for that long in your house...
Something's going on,
Yeah, and is it going to really, digest in your stomach?
So let's talk a little bit about the health benefits of being a vegan, or even becoming a vegan. How can this benefit you health-wise?
Okay, well... The more raw food you can incorporate into your diet, the better it is, because when food is cooked over a certain temperature, which is I think it's around 115 degrees, the top temperature, it gets modified. The chemicals break down, the enzymes get washed out. So the more raw food you can incorporate into the diet, the better, because of these enzymes, are the building blocks of the body. So the more of these we take in a purer form, the more the body can repair itself, the more it has what it needs to do its job specifically. The one thing I'll say about shakes, when you juice things and you make shakes out of them, if you're a person that has an illness, or something like when I was healing from the fall, the more energy the body frees up from the intestines, from needing to actually process food, the more energy it has free to go and heal the body, to direct it to where it needs to be healed the most, if that makes sense. If you eat this big...
I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit here. I mean, what you said, isn't that kind of like, pie in the sky, wishful thinking, imagining that the body will do this and do that?
No, not at all.
Tell me why.
I'll give you a personal example. Okay. When I fell off the mountain, I was broken from head to toe. And I basically had very little muscle tissue left in my legs. Couldn't walk properly. My head was split in 5 places. I had a split under my chin, near my eye, had all broken ribs. And again, conventional medicine, the only solution was to give me anti-inflammatories and antibiotics. But when I switched nutrition, when I changed my nutrition and started eating for healing, I found that instead of, when you hurt yourself, even when you fall over, you eat a big meal, you get this kind of like really tired, want to sit on the sofa, don't want to do anything.
No, I've never experienced that.
Yes. No, neither have I. But, you kind of get that feeling. When you switch your nutrition to light foods, that don't take the energy to digest, all of a sudden you actually, I found that I was beginning to walk again. I could, get on a treadmill. I couldn't walk very far, obviously, because of the lack of muscle structure in my legs. But if you see me now running 5 kilometers, you know exactly where I'm coming from. You don't feel that I want to sit here and veg. Yeah, on the couch.
You have more energy to go. You feel like you want to be doing stuff as opposed to just hanging out. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it makes perfect sense. If you have a double cheeseburger and you're on the couch, you're like, the whole body is trying to its best. All the energy you've got is just concentrated in your gut, trying to digest it. But if you have if you've just had this fruit juice that's just gone straight through you, that's making its own way, very light, then the energy, like I said, is just, it's freer.
It's always something you just said something about the cheeseburger, and this is, maybe you or people listening can relate to this, is that when you're eating that cheeseburger, it's awesome. Right?
Yeah.
When you're biting it and you're chewing it and your taste buds are exploding, it tastes wonderful. The feeling is it's a great taste experience. It feels and tastes great. But once you've eaten it and you're done, you always think, I shouldn't have eaten that.
Yeah. I've never said that personally.
But you know what I mean? It's after the fact, you're always like, oh God, why did I do that? I shouldn't have eaten that. But while you're eating it, you're like, oh man, this is heaven on earth.
Yeah. But it's designed to be that way, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And it's designed, the taste is designed to keep you going back and back and back and back.
Right, you become addicted.
Yeah, you do. You become addicted, but you're not addicted actually to that cheeseburger. You're addicted to the chemicals that are in the cheeseburger that tell your brain it's absolutely beautiful.
Because when you're eating it, the only part of the body that's benefiting from it is like your tongue.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, once it gets past your throat and into it's like bad news. But while it's in your mouth and you're chewing it and experiencing it, the feeling and the emotional content of eating it is wonderful.
Yeah. Have you never found as well, Gareth, and maybe some listeners can relate to this, as soon as you swallow it, right, do you not get that little burning, like a heart-burning sensation when it starts going down the esophagus? Do you ever get that like an acid, like an acidity?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Not too often. Yeah.
But I'll tell you one really great thing about being a vegan, and you men out there, this is maybe the time to stop listening, but as a woman, that time of the month, the PMT time, I don't crave anything sweet. In fact, I don't eat refined sugar anymore. It's been 2 months I've had no refined sugar, but I don't crave sweet things. This morning, I craved pea soup.
See, I gotta ask you about that then, about the pea soup. Like an old lady, give me some pea soup. But anyway, the sugar, right? We're all addicted to sugar.
Yes.
Now, when you do make a lifestyle change and you stop eating, you might still eat sugar, but not nearly to the quantities that you used to. The headaches, the intense, massive, painful headaches you get in regard to the withdrawal from the sugar. Now, I'm assuming, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that you went through this when you switched. Am I right?
I didn't go through so much the extreme headaches. Yes, I had a few headaches when I was making the switch. But the one thing for me was the cold shakes. I mean, literally, it was like coming off drugs. Right. I would sit, the first few days, the first week, actually, I'd sit on the sofa and I'd be like, and I would, and literally it was the shakes. It was like a detoxing cold shake. But there is a wonderful product on the market called agave nectar, which is a kind of honey, but it's not animal honey, not bees' honey. It's extracted from the cactus plant. And I found that just half a teaspoon of that would curb the sweet cravings. Yeah. And like I said, now I don't touch refined sugar. I'm not even getting it through processed foods because I don't eat them. But that's the thing about sugar is, now that you've mentioned it, I don't think people are actually aware how much sugar is in processed foods, hidden sugars, even meals that you would think would be salty or whatever.
Well, they have sugar in them. It's in everything.
It's in everything, yeah.
Everything, yeah, even a savory food that you wouldn't even think of, this is not sweet at all. I guarantee there's some sugar in there.
Yes.
The reason I asked that is because I don't know, maybe last year, maybe, or several months ago, I tried the juicing diet where you go through this cleanse thing where you just juice fresh red vegetables and drink that 3 times a day. And I tried it, and I lasted 3 days.
Well, yeah, of course you would. That's not a sustainable diet.
No, but I felt great. I wasn't hungry. I felt, lots of energy and all that stuff. The thing that killed me was the headaches. It was the worst headaches. I couldn't even drive. Yeah. It was intense pain.
Yeah, what you did was too drastic and too all of a sudden. It was horrible. You can't go from... Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying it was bad.
I was going to say, you cannot go from a standard, everyday diet straight to a juice. I don't care what anybody says. Having been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, there is no nutritionist in their right mind that would recommend you do that. If you're going to go on a juice fast or a juice cleanse, then what you would do is the week before, you would come slowly, gradually down from a standard diet, okay, to a diet that includes more fruit and veg until you can actually get to a point where you're only eating fruit and veg. Yeah. And then maybe what you'd do is you'd substitute one meal for a juice and then go on to substituting 2 meals for a juice. This takes you could do this over 2-3 weeks.
Sure.
And then eventually at the end of those 3 or 4 weeks, or however long it takes you, then you can go into a juice diet. Yeah, because your organism's prepared for it. You're putting your body into such a shock.
Well, when I did it for 3 days, and the only negative effect I experienced was the headaches. Were it not for the headaches, I would have been good to go.
Yeah. But it was too drastic.
The headache was the worst headaches I've ever had in my life. I couldn't function. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't function. I was at work just like it's screaming in pain, in my head. I mean, it wasn't literally screaming in pain, but it was horrible. And you take aspirin or whatever, and it wouldn't even make a dent. It wouldn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah, I believe that. I think that was just, like I said, it was too much, too soon, too drastic.
So let's talk a little bit about the conscious mind and clarity and maybe removing a few veils. Do you think changing your diet to a more pure vegetarian or vegan diet affects the mind, its function, and its perception of reality?
Definitely. Please elaborate. When you make the conscious decision not to eat another living being, I think already in taking that making that choice, you're respecting a life form. So automatically respecting another life form is something, that is telling me that as a human being, I'm not above an animal. I think in some respects, man has a bit of an arrogant attitude in some ways, because we do think that we're a superior race to anything else on the planet.
Right.
But if we think about it, animals were here long before us, and we came from animals if we're to believe Darwin's theory.
Right.
So there is that to it. But when you're feeling lighter in your digestive system, in your energy, and you've got more energy, from a meditation point of view, it's so much easier to sit down and just focus on what you're doing, and when you focus in the state of more focal meditation, I think you can connect more with yourself and with others, with the environment. If you're, on a plant-based diet, I feel more at one with nature. I know this probably sounds crazy, but there was one point where I think I must have been at the height of what I was doing, and I could actually feel everything around me. It was like, lots of whispering from the trees, and I could feel the atmosphere through the pores of my skin,
Right.
It was a very weird sensation, and it didn't last for very long. But it was a more connected feeling on many levels.
Is there a clarity to be had? What I mean by this is when I look back through my life, and I see myself, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my teens, and it's as if I had veils over my eyes and ears. And gradually, as I got older and I discovered more, those veils were kind of peeled off a little bit at a time. And I still have veils wrapped around my head right now, lots of them. but it's as if the clarity, you see certain things clearly, and perception is expanded upon. What I'm getting at here is a more natural diet. If your body is working in conjunction with you, Is there a greater perception?
I think there is. I think there is. Next question.
Can you? I mean, is there anywhere you can go with that, or kind of relate to that at all? I mean, I don't know. It's purely speculation on my part. I really don't know. I mean, I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not in. But those ideals are attractive to me.
I think for me, I feel very inspired a lot of the time, in the sense that maybe because my body doesn't have to process so much food, because it's easy to process fruit and vegetables, I find that my mind is very active. Well, you know how active my mind is, right. and I find that I wake up. Well, I write phrases of the day on my Facebook page. Right. Quite often. They're things that just come to me. I'll be sat here and I'll be minding my own business and I'll be reading something, and all of a sudden, boom, I get this thing, and I've wow, okay, yeah. I'm inspired. I've got to write this. I'll be doing. Some people might say, yeah, that's part of the aha moment. Mm. But how many aha moments it would be interesting actually to do a study to see how many aha moments meat eaters have compared to vegetarian vegans.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I think the main thing for me is I feel lighter in my head. I don't have that. When I used to eat dairy, even being a vegetarian eating dairy, I used to have this kind of like heavy feeling in my head. And if it was on a day like today where it's completely clouded in, I'd start getting, a little bit of a headache, right. Or I'd feel a bit low, or I'd feel but I'm not.
What I was basically trying to get at was that with genetically modified food and all of the chemicals that are put into food, obviously these chemicals do harm our bodies long term, not short term, long term. They harm us. But do these modified foods and chemicals adversely affect intelligence, perception, and consciousness?
I don't see why they couldn't.
But in which way? Do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, everything's a catch-22, really, isn't it? If you give somebody a food that's going to genetically modify them in some way, because it will. Just an example, okay, so you've given them corn, which makes them infertile. Their infertility, they start to think is a punishment from God, but it has nothing to do with God, so that's going to affect their spirituality. The way, when they have an affected spirituality, then it's going to change their way of perceiving the world, isn't it? Because they're going to think that they're doomed. They're going to think that they're not blessed. They're going to think that, especially if, having a child is like the be-all and end-all of their life, which is, some people's main goal in life is just to get married and have children.
Sure, yeah.
So, I mean, I know one particular couple here who it's the thing they live for is to have a child, and they've had several treatments and it's not working, and yeah, everything's affected by it. Their job's affected by it because they're thinking, they're subconscious, right. Well, actually consciously and subconsciously always thinking about it.
So they're obsessed by it.
Their social life is affected by it because they tend to hang around, people who don't have children, so they don't get unhappy. Right. Not necessarily who they feel happier with. Their spiritual life is affected because they're kind of questioning, God's actions.
Yeah.
And their perspective, their view on life has changed because, growing up, that was what they were brought up to believe, that you got married and you had children, but they can't have children, so, what's wrong with them?
Yeah.
But it's not them. So imagine all this corn that's been shipped to Africa, and all these people are going to eat it, and we're going to see, thousands, hundreds of thousands even, of cases of infertility.
Yes.
How is that going to affect a whole nation, for example?
Yeah, it'll affect their mental perspectives. I mean,
if we're to believe in collective consciousness as well, okay, and if we're to believe that we are all interconnected and that I can influence you and you can influence me and that everybody's influenced by one another, how is that going to affect a whole nation on more subtle levels?
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I think it's very possible. Because, like I said in the beginning, mind, body, and soul are connected. If one's out of sync, then they're all going to be out of sync. They need to be in balance to be in harmony.
Yeah.
And also, from a physical point of view, emotional point of view, we could see hundreds of thousands of cases of depression because people who can't have children, who really want to have children, do enter a type of depression. But if you look at it on the flip side of the coin, right, Monsanto's going to be making billions because, people are going to go for fertility treatments. They need antidepressant drugs.
They got all bases covered.
Well, yeah, they've got all the bases covered. I think the pharmaceutical company's aim is never ever to have us sick to the point that we die. They just want us sick to the point that we keep buying medicine. Yeah,
well, that's where the money's at. That's where the control is at. So you're vegan. You have been for a few months now, and I'm assuming this is going to be a lifestyle choice that you're going to stick with forever, right? Or not?
Yes. This is, okay, I'm overweight, and I've done all the diets there are that exist on the market. Trust me, I've done every single one of them, and no diet works. It works in the temporary, in the short term, They all work in the short term if you give them a chance. But then the minute you stop them, then it's back to normal.
You're back to normal.
So anybody who wants to make a change in their life and nutrition change needs to have something that is going to work for life, something that is plausible for life. You want to do the juicing? Brilliant. Incorporate it with your regular thing so that you can make it long term. I don't know, have 3 shakes a week even, but something that is sustainable.
Kind of mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, for your whole life. Instead of having double cheeseburger every single day, have a double cheeseburger one day and then have a juice the next to compensate. Yeah. So that your overall week is consistent. But anyway, I think we could talk about this for a very, very long time, couldn't we? But it's getting towards that time where I think, we need to wrap it up for today. But we could do another special
absolutely.
Next time. Come back with the same issues of nutrition.
Yeah.
In fact, if our listeners have any questions, that would be great. Give me something to research and give us something to talk about.
Totally.
So, Gareth, thank you very much for being with me again today.
Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah, and to everybody listening, be healthy. Just make some healthy choices and healthy changes, nothing drastic, but be aware of what you put into your body. Take care, and we'll see you again. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, bye-bye.